I could talk about the Titanic all day.
Oh, me too. I mean, the sinking of the Titanic fundamentally altered how we travel at sea.
Having set sail with over 2,200 passengers, the ship, believed to be unsinkable, sank in just 2 hours and 40 minutes when it collided with an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean. Just over 700 people survived. I'm Katie, historian, author and podcaster.
I'm Gareth. I'm a historian, author, podcaster and broadcaster.
Today, we're in the former office of the Titanic's chief designer, now part of a fancy Titanic-themed hotel just across from the Titanic Museum in Belfast, Northern Ireland. From this iconic location, Gareth and I are going to combine our knowledge with interviews from actors who brought survivors' testimonies to life in a recent BBC docudrama to reveal what life after disaster looked like for third-class passenger Seleni Yazbeck.
She helped her nephew and her sister board the last lifeboat.
Stewardess Violet Jessup.
As the lifeboat is leaving, she's watching the boat go down.
Second Officer Charles Lightoller.
It's really hard to block out that noise.
And fashion designer Lady Duff Gordon.
She was fascinating. She was the original it girl.
Real people with real stories that didn't end when the ship went down. So Seleni Yazbeck, she is a teenager, she is just married to her new husband, and she is emigrating to a new life with him in the US. Sarah Diab brought her testimony to life.
She was fleeing the grip of the Ottoman Empire, which ruled Syria at the time. Her story has so many similarities to what we see nowadays with immigrants and refugees.
What really hits me about Seleni is that she's going to a country she doesn't know that has a language that she doesn't speak.
My parents were immigrants. I know my mum didn't speak much English when she first arrived, and I know that was very difficult for her. So in a way, playing Seleni, I imagine my mum.
Now, luckily, she does have some family over there.
Yes, but her father's actually at the dock to welcome her off the Carpathia. So she goes into a supportive family network in America, which many other third-class survivors don't do. When she gets to America, she's very upset to discover that her husband, who she'd lost in the sinking, hadn't made any provision for her in his will.
And so she had to go to court in order to get any provision made for her.
After the disaster, Seleni remarried an old acquaintance, Elias Michael. She had 12 kids with him, one of which she named after Anton.
She loses her second son and her oldest daughter within months of each other. And then later on, her other son, he passes away from bronchopneumonia in the 1930s.
She does stay married. She seems to be a very active member of the community as well. So in some ways, there is a huge amount of devastation in her life, but I also think there's a great amount of love and longevity.
So she would have been so young, and to experience a trauma like that so young must have been terrifying.
Well, we are at one of our mutual favourites,
Violet Jessup.
I love her.
I love her.
Vicky Allen plays Violet.
It was class to learn about her because she was such a resilient kind of person and a really important person.
Violet Jessup becomes known as the unsinkable lady. After the Titanic, she ends up working on the Britannic as a nurse.
Which is the Titanic's younger, larger and newer sister ship.
And it's here where she has her final sinking.
Yes, war starts in 1914. The Britannic, it's moved into the Mediterranean with Violet working on board for the Gallipoli campaign.
And then the Britannic hits a mine. She has such a clear mind. She's prepared for what to do. She makes sure to grab her coat and her toothbrush.
Hopefully, I'm not involved in any kind of tragedy, but if I was, you know, I will try and think back to her kind of reactions and kind of take that with me, take her strengths with me.
If I got on a ship and Violet was on...
I would be close. I would be shadowing her, and then if anything happened, I'd be following her.
I would be like, Violet, listen, I have a 3-pack of toothbrushes here, so if we survive, one of them is yours.
After that, pretty smooth sailing from then on.
Well, she'd earned it by then.
I think so.
She does go back, though, to sea working on the passenger ships again in the 1920s, although she briefly married.
Very briefly. Ends up retiring in a lovely little cottage in England.
If Violet was around now, I'd love to sit down with her with a wee cup of tea and just listen to her stories.
And someone else who went on to have a very eventful life was Second Officer Charles Lightoller. I do think that Lightoller would be worth a mini-series because he did so much in his life.
So there was a lot going on for Charles that night. As second officer, he was in charge of getting the passengers into the lifeboats.
I think there is an idea that in order to have survived the Titanic as a man, you have to have done something dishonourable because of Lightoller's rule.
Yes, this is based on the Birkenhead drill. The HMS Birkenhead wrecked off the coast of South Africa while carrying a small number of civilians. Soldiers on board allowed women and children to escape the sinking first, which led to the unofficial maritime protocol of women and children first. It's more of a guideline, if anything else.
Got it.
But fast forward to the evacuation of the Titanic, and Lightoller interprets this rule as women and children only.
Some people might say what Charles did was wrong. Actually, I believe that Charles believed what he did was right.
When the First World War breaks out, he joins the Royal Navy. But even with an award and the passage of time, when he returned to work for the White Star Line, they still weren't prepared to promote him.
He is a living reminder of something the White Star Line wants to forget.
So he ends up with a boat repairing business.
Yes.
Mainly repairing police boats, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting.
Beside his guest house and his chicken farm.
Yep.
He even had his own yacht, the Sundowner. And after the Second World War, when Charles hears about the retreat of Allied forces at Dunkirk in May 1940, he volunteers himself and the Sundowner to join the hundreds of merchant vessels aiding in the evacuation.
He gets 130 onto a ship built for 21. So he is someone, I think, with immense bravery.
Having not heard of Charles before this, I'm really glad to have got to know the man.
I like to think of Lucy Duff Gordon as feisty.
Yes, I think that's a fair description.
Played by Candida Gubbins, she was a leading fashion designer travelling in first class.
She was fascinating. She was a real tour de force. She was the original it girl.
The lifeboat that she was on, it became known as the money boat because it's assumed that they bribed their way onto it.
Yeah.
It had very few passengers on it, and not only was her secretary on with her, Miss Francatelli, but so was her husband. As the ship goes down, she turns to Miss Francatelli and goes, "Well, there goes your nightgown."
And that quote is one that will play again and again in the media and history books, that as the Titanic sank in front of her, Lady Duff Gordon's primary concern was a piece of fashion.
Unfortunately, Lucy and Cosmo's marriage ended a few years after escaping the sinking ship.
She was a real career woman. She didn't want to sit at home and arrange flowers and clean the house and decide what was going to be eaten for dinner.
Continuing to work in the fashion industry, Lucy is credited as one of the first designers to use live models.
She is someone who fundamentally changes the industry when she's a part of it.
So after the disaster, her business actually managed to grow quite well over the years, up until 1917, because she had made a deal with this company to exclusively market her fashion designs. But she made an agreement with this massive department store in the USA to then market her clothes instead. And so she was quite clearly in the wrong. So she was taken into court, and this was effectively the start of her business disintegrating. With her career declining, Lucy decided to write her memoirs in 1932. She really let rip.
Yeah, it was as if you are going to criticise me for my husband living, then I'm going to criticise you for yours dying. And in this extraordinary bit, she kind of tears into the Titanic widows and says it was really your fault that you didn't love your husbands enough to get them into the lifeboats.
I think she was livid, with the mistreatment, specifically how it related to Cosmo. And I think that's where a lot of her anger came from.
But it is the last storm of Lady Duff Gordon's life. She sort of retreats from public view after this. She does then go into an old people's home and passes away from breast cancer. An extraordinary life.
She was a formidable, imaginative woman who wasn't of the time.
I think maybe a tribute to the Titanic and its victims is how many thousands of lives they have saved in the decades since.
Yes. In 1914, the Safety of Life at Sea Act was created, which enforced ships to ensure that they had enough lifeboats to carry every person on board. The International Ice Patrol was formed the same year.
In over a century, it has drastically reduced the numbers of collisions, shipwrecks, and deaths caused by icebergs.
And hopefully this will make sure that history does not repeat itself.
Absolutely.